Hello and welcome back to another installment of Fodder. Today we are talking about big news from Jurassic World Alive. It looks like version 1.13 is ready to go. We have a maintenance announcement for tomorrow, which is Tuesday, whenever I'm recording this video. And we do have patch notes that I know everybody has been eagerly anticipating. And the first thing we're going to talk about is creature changes, and there are a lot of them. Now, if you're wondering, is my favorite figure going to be buffed? The answer is most likely no. There were a lot of stat changes to different figures, and there was only one buff that we know about so far. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now, the one buff is Megalosaurus. It went from 880 attack to 1000. Everything else that I go over for the rest of this video is going to be statistically a nerf. Now, there are going to be some move changes and everything that might actually be a buff, but statistically, it was a going out of business sale and all things were slashed. GamePress, there's a link in the description below. GamePress did this nice little infographic if you just want to look to see everything, and I will put that somewhere on here, but there is a lot of red. I'm not going to go over every single nerf because there's a lot. If I'm just scanning over this list, I want to say 25, maybe even 30 statistical nerfs. But what I want to do is I want to touch on some of the more important ones, things that people care about towards higher levels. How about that? Ardentis Maxima. 300 point HP nerf from 5700 in 1.12 down to 5400. Now, 300 may not seem like that big of a deal, but if you'll remember from other videos that I've done, and I've talked about how leaving your opponent with 500 or less HP typically means that you're going to end up losing. So you can see like 300 could be the difference in the figure you're running just barely not knocking them out and going ahead and knocking them out. So keep that in mind. I think that's I don't think it's the biggest nerf out of all these, but it is a nerf. Another one, Carbonimes went from 40-20 to 35-40. That's not going to be a big deal in the battle arena, but that is going to be a pretty substantial thing in tournament play. I know a lot of people like to run the turtle in the tournaments. Carbotoceratops went from 3,900 down to 3,090. That is a massive nerf. Oddly, like there's a couple on here that are just complete head scratchers. And I'm talking about, and I have to find it on the list here because I'm just like, Spinoconstrictor from 1,200 down to 1,000. Like nobody's even had a chance to really create that to use it. How is it already getting a nerf? And then the rhino, the unique rhino that I cannot for the life of me remember what that thing is called. Monolorhino went from 3990 HP down to 3750 HP. Another kind of like, really? Like, okay, I don't get it. Smilonimes went from 1200 HP to 1100 HP. That's a 100 nerf. Woolly Rhino went from 1070 down to 1000. 4,500 health to 4,410. There's a few others that I really want to touch on that I'm going to go into more detail on. Just kind of scanning through this. Entelemoth went from 1,500 to 1,450. Kind of interesting there. Dilophobo went from 1,100 down to 1,000. Dracorex and Dracorex Gen 2 and Dracoceratops both went minus 200 in health or attack from 1,500 down to 1,300. And I'll let you look at the list on, like I said, it'll be somewhere. But also if you want to check this out in greater detail, maybe a little bit bigger, there's a link to GamePress. Make sure you check out their write-up. Some other changes that we had are going to be Amargocephalus, Ankylosaurus Gen 2, Euphlocephalosaurus, Notosaurus, Tragodistus, and Scolosaurus, all from the same family there. Their basic attack becomes superior vulnerability. The creature attributes were tweaked to reflect this change. So that's why some of those numbers changed on those particular figures. Parasaurus Gen 2, and Carnotaurus are going to keep vulnerability strike. and then Megalosaurus counterattack becomes decelerating counterattack. Probably one of the biggest nerfs in this is going to be Thylacotator, and that is this one figure, this epic hybrid was so good. It was on so many teams. People were dumping a lot of health boosts into this because it was a really nice, well-rounded figure with its rendering attack that did 60% of max HP. It had a bleed, it had a way to take speed control, and it had a way to cleanse / dodge. So it was a really a jack of all trades, really. And this one took a pretty significant nerf. It's being dropped from 4,500 to 4,050, and that's almost 500 difference. And I want to say that's something in the neighborhood of like 12% of its total HP gone off the top like that, which is that 12% is a pretty big deal in my opinion. Nobody's had the opportunity to run these new numbers through the sim, so I don't know exactly how it's going to play out in certain matchups. But anytime that you're talking like a double-digit % drop in something, that seems, in my opinion, initially to be a pretty healthy nerf. I am one who uses Thyla, and I'm a little upset about this. In fact, I haven't dropped my last 2 health boosts into this because I'm not sure. Now, for me, it's level 28. It's my second highest level figure in the game, or creature in the game. And so I'm kind of stuck with it now. But at the same time, I don't know that I really want to invest a whole lot more into it. Another nerf that is really probably going to be felt in the arena is going to be Quetzalryan. It receives an attack nerf of 130 points. For me, Orion, it was one of my favorite creatures at one point in time. The problem that I personally have with it is the fact that there's so many deceleration moves that it was really susceptible to someone spamming either speed up or decel superiority strike most prominently against this, and then you'd never get your lead in order to be able to use your rampage. So with that being said, Quetzalryan hasn't been on my team, but I know that a lot of people have been using it, and with this 130 point nerf at even levels, and we are talking at even levels, with boosts things change, but at even levels it can no longer take out Erladom, which was its main counter. Like it was in the game to counter all those speedy Erladoms, and it can no longer take that out in one shot. So I'm not sure. They did the math, and the rampage is now down at 3040, so it won't be able to one shot Erladom with its 3300 HP. Man, I gotta say that if your creature is there to counter something, and it no longer counters what its main goal was, I gotta say that's a pretty significant nerf. And so I think a lot of people are going to be starting to question Quetzalryan, and I know a lot of people have put a ton of boosts into this one. And finally, the last big nerf that I want to talk about is the superior vulnerability and the changes that it underwent. Now, most of you probably only really know about this particular move from the tournaments when you use Carbo Nimis, and that is because it would do the vulnerability and then attack, so you get the extra damage off the first attack. And well, they've changed the mechanics of this. Basically, what's going to happen is instead of the vulnerability happening and then the attack happening, the attack is going to happen, but then the vulnerability part is going to happen after that. And the reason why this is significant and the reason why this is different than just vulnerability is because you also slow down your opponent. So where this is really, really going to come into play, and you might actually see this in the battle arena, is specifically with Tragodistus, because remember, Tragodistus has that nice rampage move. So there could be a situation where you do your basic move, which is going to be the superior vulnerability. You're going to do a one-time attack, but your opponent's going to be vulnerable. You're also going to slow them down, and then you come back with a kind of a 1-2 punch, where at that point, then you're going to hit them with a rampage and do additional damage. So you definitely could see, at least in the early days, until all this plays out and people figure things out, you could see more of those really high-level Tragodistus in the game again, because there was a time that was a really high-end figure. I keep saying figure, creature. And so a lot of people have those really high level, and so it'll be interesting to see how that actually shakes out in the battle arena. Like I said, there are some really big nerfs going on here, some head scratching nerfs going on here, and then a couple of little changes that kind of explain why nerfs happen. And on balance, it should all level out. But like I said, the head scratchers and then like Thyla and Orion kind of got hit. Probably the hardest is gonna shake things up in the battle arena, at least until people get things figured out. I'm going to be covering more about 1.13. Remember, there is going to be a link in the description below for 50 free hard cash. Make sure you claim that. Probably want to hold on to that until after the update tomorrow. And that's all I've got for this one. Be looking for more videos going over more of the details of 1.13 soon.